Okay, we're going live on Facebook.
Hi, are you Deborah?
Yes, hi, I'm Deborah. I'm just starting our recording.
Good.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Thomas, for creating this vehicle through which we all got together in the first place. And of course, we are in this coronavirus era, COVID-19 era, and the World Food Program is projecting that the number of people, I'm getting an echo.
Let's see where that's coming from. See if that's better. I just muted a couple of people, so when you get ready and you want to speak, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, I was saying that the World Food Program said that they're projecting that the number of people who are going hungry will double by the end of the year. And so, and that is not good news. And that is something that we need to address. And I think this community is the best suited, the best positioned to address this. I really see us building a new system on the foundation of good, healthy food being available to people anywhere, anytime, so that they can eat. So I think basic rights, I mean, satisfying our hunger should be something that we should take for granted as a species. And having pure water available to us to drink is something that we should be taking for granted as a species. So those are the things that our community has to provide us. And it's our responsibility, I think, as the religious community to come together and make this happen from the grassroots, from the ground up, because our governments are not doing it. So we're literally seeing everything just fall apart. So that is my opening appeal to all of us. And so now I'm going to ask each one of you to say a few words. I'll probably start with someone, the person in the middle of my screen. It is Judy. So Judy could say a few words and start the conversation going.
Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Carman, and it's wonderful to be here. And we're here because of Thomas's film. People that are listening in hopefully have seen the film, and if you haven't, you must. What Sailesh is saying is so vitally important right now. There are people hungry right now, starving right now, a lot because of this COVID-19. And the fact is governments and corporations are not going to fix this. It's up to us. And but we've got the tools and we've got the heart for it. We've got the love for it. A big part of that is eliminating animal agriculture. As we all know, that is one of the major causes of all of these problems. And now I believe the public is beginning to realize that that's the case with pandemics as well. And so we've got some work to do, and Thomas's film is so inspiring because it gives us the hope and the empowerment that we can do that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Judy. Rabbi Cohan, thank you for joining us on your Sabbath.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Thomas, for having created this film, which, as Sailesh, this is the reason we're here today. In addition to all the thoughts that have been expressed in the past couple of minutes, which I completely endorse, which there's no doubt they're correct. There's another big reason we need to be even more strategic and more energetic in our advocacy. And that's this. As we all know, COVID-19 is a zoonotic disease. It started, as best as we can tell, at a meat market in Wuhan. And, the thing is, this was predicted by epidemiologists, not the exact scope or details, but we were warned, especially after SARS, that this could happen. So it's the threat of a second pandemic, which could be even worse, is a real threat. So we have to get people to adopt plant-based diets, because if you look at the last 7 or 8 big epidemics, I'm talking about obviously SARS, and this is a SARS coronavirus, talking about MERS, talking about mad cow disease, swine flu, and even HIV. Every single one of these are zoonotic diseases, and every single one of these started when someone slaughtered an infected animal for meat. And with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you. Susan, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Climate Healers, for organizing this, Sailesh, and thank you so much, Thomas, for featuring Animal Hero Kids in Prayer for Compassion. And what Animal Hero Kids is doing to get the message out to the mainstream people that if the world were vegan, we would not be in this situation right now. And we are doing videos in a simple, fun, palatable, you might want to say, way to have people realize the link between eating animals and super germs and viruses. 3 out of 4 emerging super viruses are from eating animals. And we all know SARS, MERS, mad cow disease, bird flu, swine flu is it's all connected to eating animals. And historically, change happens from, you might say, from the ground up, from the grassroots up. It's one individual or others all coming together, and the government catches up to this change. Now is a perfect breeding ground for everyone to work on getting this message out to the mainstream that meat eating animals equals ill health for the planet, for each other, and of course for all the animals we don't share the planet with very nicely. And the way that Animal Hero Kids does this is through education. And I think education is the prevention, and it is the solution. The only way we're going to make change is to educate more, and that educate in a big way, which is in the school system and in the media. Those are like the major 2 places, media and school system. And now is the time for us to do that. I think it's a perfect opportunity. And I don't mean to sound mercenary when I say this, but it is the perfect opportunity for us all in our own, whatever we do to help the planet and each other and other animals, whatever we do, now is the time to pull the stops out and really make a point of reaching the mainstream with our message. People should not be going out and buying meat in order to shelter at home and stay healthy. We have to completely dispel that myth immediately. So, do I hear a yes?
Of course.
Can I get a yes? Let's do it.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
Here, here.
Go for it, Renee, please.
Hey, Sailesh. Thank you so much for inviting me on this very, very awesome panel. You know, though I wasn't in the film, my heart and spirit was in the film. And I was actually at the very first viewing of the film when we were all there together for Vegan World 2026. So I'm really really honored to be here and to be included. And this what's that? I'm breaking up. Did you say I'm breaking up, Deborah?
No, we had an echo, but I muted
Yeah,
Susan.
you're good.
And it worked out, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but as far as the food goes, you know, the farm here is a real extension of who we are. We have been attempting to grow a organic farm since we started Rowdy Girl at the beckoning and pleading of Kip Anderson. You know, Kip has really wanted us to have that veganic farm, so we started it in Rowdy Girl in Angleton. And because we were refugees of climate change, we became victims first and then refugees. In other words, we were constantly in our minds fearful that we were going to be flooded, devastated again, and we're going to have to evacuate all of the sentient beings, herd of animals that are home to Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And so it became real clear to us that we couldn't do the organic farm. So we lost 30 or 40 fruit trees. We lost our entire organic garden little lab that we had started. It was really, really awesome what we were doing. And then we realized all of our focus had to go on animal care and self-care. But you know, it's interesting now that we're finally in Welder. Not only are we able to plant roots, you know, physically, we're able to plant the roots of all the garden, the food in the garden. I mean, we have an abundance of food. If you would, I just want to see if I can show you something right quick. I'm going to show you this. You got to see this. You got to see this food, y'all. I mean, look at this food right here. This is just a little bit. You see all that? That's just a little bit. I mean, we have baskets and baskets overflowing food. There is no reason for people to be hungry. We need to teach people, to Susan's point, how to grow food, whether it be in the ground, whether it be in a tub, whether it be in a raised bed, whether it be on their windowsill, whether it be in hydroponics. I mean, it is incumbent upon this community to learn how to grow food ourselves. I mean, if we're not growing food ourselves, we can't teach anyone anything. And so what the beauty of what we're doing here is that we are learning as we go. We're not experts in organic gardening, but we are experts in the willingness to get this done, to do whatever it takes to be out there with the earth, feet on the ground, hands in the soil, picking the weeds, removing the bugs, doing everything from a standpoint of how can we best protect the earth, the animals, create the best food for this environment, you know. And so, you know, food is indeed political, you know, it is. And if we do not take back our innate right to have sustenance, good, clean, healthy food, then we are indeed missing the boat. And I'm so glad you led with that, Sailesh. What a great lead about the food. And thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for sharing. And finally, last but not least, obviously, is our producer, Thomas Jackson. Thank you for bringing us all together.
Thank everybody for being here and for being a part of this. This has been a really blessing for me and on so many levels, but it really has given me faith in that there are unseen forces at work, that the universe is on our side and wants us to sustain, you know, miracle after miracle. Almost the way I met everybody in the film and the way everything unfolded about the film was magical. and I can't thank you all. And right now, you know, it is so important with what's going on that we really take the time to go within and meditate. There's so much information out there. I think it behooves us to be open to hear so much of what's coming down, because there's a lot of people that's saying things that are true that are being discredited, and there's things that are being said that are not true. You know, like, how do we know? False information is so hard to tell now, that it really, meditation, I think, you know, when Jesus was talking about the letter and the spirit of the law, it's so important. We always go to the spirit and we say, what we hearing, does it ring true with what I'm feeling in this meditation? And more importantly, what is my role right now? What is my part? Like, this film came about because I asked, what can I do? I saw the need of what we need to do, you know, and while I'm making the film, you know, I'm waking up more to the world around me, nature-wise. You know, I see like this virus is just one more thing Mother Nature has been trying to show us in some way, whether it was manufactured in a lab or what, however it came, doesn't matter. The karma of what we've been sowing to the other animals and to the planet is manifesting itself. I lived right before our premiere, or before our first preview at the Vegan World 2026. I lived through a hurricane in an RV, and I saw the strength and power of Mother Nature. And the next day when I came out and I saw all my altars of Jesus and Buddha and all the angels and children and animals were standing straight up on tables that usually a cat jumps on and they fall over. I really started believing that there's intelligence within all things. You know, I kind of have heard that before and stuff, but I really started feeling it in my bones. So I feel like right now, like, just know there are going to be players that want to, however this started, however it ends, there's always players that want to profit off of your suffering and your misery, whether it's what they sell you to eat or what they sell you to put in your body. The best thing we can do right now is take care of ourselves. Go to that Compassionate Living Challenge and start doing those 4 principles. You know, start meditating every day and getting exercise, eating nutritious food, making sure you're getting that right from the garden, you know, and getting your sleep. Like, nurturing yourself as if you're going to be, like, I'm not saying warrior, like we're going to pick up arms, but I know that we need our senses, we need our presence, we need our strength, we need our optimism, we need all the good that's within us. We need it right now. And the way to do that is to take care of yourself. If you're sheltered away, take advantage of that and make sure you are going within and you're eating good food and you're exercising. If you have land, if even small, listen to what Renee was saying, plant something, man. You do a little work and it does a lot of work. If you provide, it's like anything in the universe, if you provide the right environment, the right soil, the right love and care, what you put out, it will grow beyond what you can do. This film is, for me, is an example. I never could have made this film. Like, I didn't set out to make this film. This film made itself. Like the garden makes itself. I just kept planting seeds and showing up and watering when they came, fertilizing when they came. And this is all I'm asking people to do, man. It's just like, be present, realize the world needs you right now. It needs every one of us. You came here for a reason at this time for a reason. And your marching orders can be heard every day. And they may change from day to day, but if you tune in every day, you can get those marching orders and you can show up. And I still live in the RV in the middle of the woods. And I tell you what, if I had saw what was going to happen before I started the journey, I would have said, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. So don't believe you can't do what you're being called to do. You can do it. Just do the steps, you know, and that's my message mainly, just to say, and Sailesh, man, you have changed my life. You're the reason I'm a vegangelist now. The lessons you've taught me, the things like the times we spent together when we were in Morocco and we'd ride that bus and we'd talk and you'd tell me all these wonderful stories from the Hindu tradition. And you would remind me that everything is exactly how it should be. Like if we were already all Buddhas, the planet would be in an ice age right now or something, you know, I mean, there's a reason we all had these callings that maybe didn't seem Buddhist, you know, or whatever, like holy and righteous at the time, you know, through our history. But right now, instead of pointing fingers at people and saying, it's their fault, you know, I mean, there's so many people dividing themselves over this in our community and all communities. You know, I see it along liberal lines and Republican. Like it's got us all in. It's like we used to be like liberals and Republicans. Now we're like divisions within all these ranks. And so I'm just telling you, love each other. Know that we can't know the truth. It's not about knowing. It's about knowing the truth within you of what you're supposed to do, and that your purpose is not to worry, because you have been given powers. You've been given the power of discernment. That's where you meditate and you discern that right now you're breathing air and you're okay. So while you're doing that, get out of the distress zone, find the peace. So my heart is really, I think more people are meditating. On NPR, I'm driving into town and I'm hearing like a whole show on meditation. And then yesterday I'm driving back from town and I'm hearing a lady who's a vegan TikTok viral lady, and they're talking, and the host is talking about vegan and saying vegan, like, it's just casual words, no big deal, no condensation in these conversations at all. Meditation, veganism, all these things are being like accepted seriously now. So we have the advantage now to go out and live the best life we can and be the best example and show people that you can thrive. And part of that is taking care of your spiritual aspect as well. So if you haven't checked out the Compassionate Living Challenge, I invite you all to do it and check it out. Take your own pace. There's no money involved. It's just like, I want everybody to be answering their calling right now. The world really, really needs it. And Melody needs it, and all our children need it. So that's what I rambled out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Of course, it's, this is, to me, there is a lot of division going on, but there is also a lot of unity going on. So you see both sides. And which one do you water? Which one do you point to and say, that is what is supposed to be? So I see people volunteering, going up to the Navajo Nation, people taking truckloads of supplies and food to them because they've been hurt badly by this crisis. But it brings us all together. It also brings us together to see what is important in life. So, yeah, thank you for that, Thomas. Thank you for reminding me of the bus, of the bus journeys. And yeah, it is, to me, it's part of a progression that we are getting through this. We are in the chrysalis phase now. The COVID-19 has put us in the chrysalis phase. I see, conservative opinion writers like Matthew Scully saying animal agriculture is immoral. Isaac Bailey wrote an article saying animal agriculture is immoral. So the question of it being, the morality of it is coming out now. And I think this is the opportunity for the religious community to come together and say, yes, they're right. That this is not what we are supposed to be doing right now. We need to be shifting to a completely plant-based world, a vegan world, in which, because it's through animal agriculture that we create an artificial scarcity in our food system. I use this analogy of a mother, so Mother Earth, making 46 plates of food, putting it in the fridge and saying, you 8 children, you take care of this, feeding yourself. I'm going to go to work and I'll come back. And then the eldest brother takes 40 plates of food and makes his younger sister go feed it to the animals. And from that 40 plates of food, she brings back 1 plate of food. Then he says, there are only 7 plates of food, there are 8 of us, so someone has to starve. That's what's going on right now. That is the system we are in right now. And as a species, we can do better than that. We call ourselves Homo sapiens sapiens, which is the wise species. And we are doing something incredibly stupid. And you can see that in our food system. So now that, even National Review has printed an article saying it is immoral, it's time for us to push that through, and say, yes, maybe we should all write an article from our own perspective as to why we need to get to a plant-based world right now. Okay, and why our tradition is telling us, our cultural tradition, our spiritual tradition is telling us that this is the time to get to a vegan world. So in this way, we can compile it together and give that out to people. This is part of the education that we could be doing. What do you think of that idea?
Can I answer, Susan?
Sure.
I think that you make a really good point, because mainstream media is finally paying attention to the link between eating animals and the health of the human population. And Jonathan Safran Foer has had an article piece in the New York Times, and there was one called "Is It the End of Meat?" This is mainstream newspapers are having these articles. It is a perfect time for everyone in their own capacity, as you mentioned, to write an article about why the current situation we're in is a signpost. It's a hello wake up call to completely change the majority of the population's choices of eating other animals. Because if we don't do it now, it could be complete and utter disaster. And I think this is a really important thing to underline. And I don't think at this point that people will say, oh, they're extreme. What's extreme is COVID-19. That's extreme. So I do think it's a perfect time to do that. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning, I write best in the morning. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to write that and send it to everywhere I can. So thanks for that inspiration. Little nudge. We all need a little nudge sometime. I wrote something on the Animal Hero Kids blog saying, this is another fine mess you've got us into, referring to the animal-based agriculture. But then I don't think the majority of the population understood the allusion to the old comedy show, because everybody's younger now. So I gotta change that title and get it out there. So, and I think I have to say, Renee really should write an article and get it in everywhere from the point of view of a farmer turned sanctuary. What do you think, Renee?
Well, thank you for that, Susan. Yeah, I was listening to Sailesh expound upon that, and the invitation, I was like, I wrote it down. It was like, so why plant-based right now? And, and then the whole idea of it being immoral. And when cattle ranchers and other animal farmers start seeing the immorality of meat, so many of our kind see it as very righteous, a very righteous job, a very righteous profession. They're a very honorable profession. And what's happening now is this shift in that, farmers and ranchers are being forced to kill their animals before they slaughter them. Now, is that not a weird analogy? I mean, it's such a dichotomy. They're being forced to kill their animals before they're slaughtered. But see, in a farmer's mind, that's different. And what we have to understand is to meet people where they are. We have to understand that these farmers love their animals and they have to kill them when it's time to slaughter them. That's how they keep the business going. That's how they keep the heritage, the tradition. And it's not like they're doing this because they, are trying to be malicious or mean or all that. It's just the heritage. And what is happening is this archaic tradition, livelihood that has been in our landscape for over 10,000 years is beginning to crack. It's kind of like the crack that happens in the Antarctic when everything starts to flood, when everything starts to change, the earth starts to rumble. It's happening right now in animal agriculture. That crack is there. They're being forced to see the reality of who these animals are. They're not just that commodity that they're sending to make a money on. Now they're seeing that they're having to kill their animals before it's time, and they're faced with the immorality of it. It's so interesting. And so I would love actually to write a piece on it from this perspective, because I really do see it. And then when you tie that into the fact that most every American farmer is an evangelical Christian of some sort. I mean, usually, you know, farmers are very Christian. You know, my husband, for instance, used to be an elder in the Presbyterian church where we were members, you know, and most every, you know, person there, every man that was a deacon or an elder, you know, had a cattle ranch or something. And so there you go. And so one of the reasons we stopped going to that church is because when I went vegan, I was faced with a situation at a potluck at the church where this elderly gentleman came up to me. We were newly vegan, and he said, "Oh, I saw Penny. Penny's a pig that we rescued. That's an FFA surrender. Oh, I saw Penny, you know, in something on Facebook. If you ever get tired of her, there's room for her in my freezer." And he said it and laughed. See, and today I understand that. But I looked at him, and I was newly vegan and in church. So wonder I didn't say F you and then a few other words, you know, but I looked at him and I just went, "Excuse me?" He just said, "Well, you know, if you ever get tired of Penny, I love a good old pork roast." And I was like, "Sir, I don't mean to be disrespectful." I said, "But I want you to know that's totally unacceptable. Penny is my friend. I love her, and you have really offended me." And he said, "Oh, I didn't mean to. I was just kidding." I said, "Well, it isn't a joke to me, and it's not funny at all." And I had tears coming down my cheek. And I turned around and I told my husband, "I don't want to go back to that church." I was newly vegan. And where we are now, we're in a place where I could go back to that church. You know, I could be in that church. I could be in any church, and I could say whatever I need to say, you know, and do it from a place of love and not be so offended, because I know where these people are. These people right now, because of what's happening with COVID, are ready to break. They need solutions. They want to be moral. They don't know they're immoral until they see it with their own eyes. And this is the perfect opportunity for people to wake up. Yeah.
Renee, can I say something? That was, yeah, I really appreciate what you said. And it reminded me of an article I read very recently where the pig farmer was saying, "I'm brokenhearted. I have to kill my pigs." And it's like, whoa, he doesn't see that he was going to kill the pigs very soon after, but now he has to kill the pigs. And he felt terrible about it. And it makes you understand kind of a little bit better of where they are mentally. But I think you're right, Renee, that it's also forcing them to face what they've been doing all along and try to come to grips with it. But I'm glad you mentioned churches, because one of the things we have at the Interfaith Vegan Coalition is a bunch of resources for people who are going to church to try to start, well, it all kind of goes together, because Thomas came up with the idea of the compassionate living circles, which is something that people could form at church after they've shown the film. And then one of the things that the Interfaith Vegan Coalition offers is a whole bunch of resources on our website. And one of them is this 10 steps. I don't know if you can read that with my lighting, but it's 10 steps. Bring vegan values of compassion, nonviolence, and justice to your place of worship. So it's the first step, for example, I won't read them all, but form a compassionate living circle to practice and promote vegan living within your place of worship And then contact interfaith@idausa.org for help and find resources. We've got all kinds of stuff, not just for Christian churches, but all different kinds of places of faith. Just like books that they can read, films they can show, including, of course, A Prayer for Compassion, and quotes from spiritual leaders in their faith that say eating animals, using animals in any way is basically against our religious values, against our highest goals as human beings. And so the whole idea is to at least empower people who are going to a place of worship to feel confident in talking to their spiritual leader or to other people that go there, like you've done, Renee, and like a lot of us have done, and saying, hey, you know, this isn't aligned with our highest values. If we're planning to go to a rodeo, or we're planning to have a potluck full of plates full of fried chicken and stuff, this is not aligned with our true values of the golden rule and everything that is talked about in the film, the Prayer for Compassion film. All those various leaders from different religions are saying, yes, our highest goals as people are to become, well, we're talking about Homo ahimsa instead of Homo sapiens. We're like, Sailesh, like you're saying, we're in the chrysalis phase, which is exciting in a lot of ways, really. We finally got here. We're seeing things disintegrate all around us, and that's our signal. That's our signal. We're almost there. And so yeah, let's go. Let's write these articles. I just I get the AARP magazine. They didn't say hardly anything about COVID in this issue. There's an article talking about how great this one rancher is. But at the very back, there's an article about Christian Gregory, Dick Gregory's son, and how he's promoting his father's message of veganism. And so I'm definitely going to write a letter to the editor there. And that's another thing we can do, is letters to the editor. Hopefully people still read those, especially I think they do in magazines. And hopefully they'll print it. Just to point out, you know, here you are telling people eat salmon and all this stuff for your health, and idolize this rancher, and then very quietly mentioning the Dick Gregory veganism and teachings of compassion. So try to actually, this is, you know, more of a secular thing, but say, look, you know, you're promoting this value of Dick Gregory, and at the same time, in the same magazine, you're bringing out all these other things that are at total odds with it. So this is the time. Yeah, it's an exciting time. And yeah, we've got a lot to do.
You know, you mentioned the ARB magazine, and I'm actually old enough to get it too. But after reading it a few times, I got so frustrated, I just stopped. So I commend you, Judy, for continuing to do it. But then you might want to cite this when you contact them. ARP co-funded one of the largest nutrition studies with the NIH. This was, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when, you could look it up. The NIH ARP study, which showed, guess what? Vegans live longer and have lower rates of chronic disease. This is ARP's own study.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I'll do that.
And I've been vegan since 1985. and now I'm 60, and I have seen the vegan products actually explode. There are so many alternatives now to eating and drinking animals and animal products. And the plant milks, 42% of households currently have plant milks in their fridge. That's all households. So it's not a matter of taking away, it's just a matter of replacing with our regular food that you've grown up with. You can still have, like I've got the English Irish background, well, we can still have mashed potatoes and gravy, and we just use Marmite for the gravy, which is really good. And so it's not like you're taking away. It's not like you're missing anything. As a matter of fact, I found when I went vegan, even in 1985, my scope of choices expanded into more of the world's diet, like more Indian food, more Thai food, more Chinese food. So it's actually expands your palate and your choices. So consumer choices is what changes the world also. In the early 80s, when I began working in the animal rights movement, there was actually 2 companies that didn't test on animals, their cosmetics. And when people realized what was happening to the animals and that there are other choices, it balloomed. And now today, I mean, you would almost be hard pressed to find a company that does test on animals cosmetics. It is such a huge difference. Why is that difference so huge? Because the consumers made the wise choice of not harming others with their dollar. And now consumers need to make the wise choice of not harming themselves and others with their dollar. And that is a smart choice that once people realize that, oh, this is healthier. I mean, my brother, who is very macho, is actually drinking almond milk, which is, it's like, I don't know why the sky didn't like open up and a big sound come, because for him to drink almond milk, he is so resistant and macho that has to be a signal that the people are ready to listen. One of our biggest challenges is the fact that the government is funding the meat and dairy industries. That is one of the biggest challenges. And the fact is that they need alternatives. And I'm sorry, that's my house phone ringing, but we have to also focus on the fact that we do not want our tax dollars going to fund animal cruelty. And that's what's happening right now. It's always been happening, and now it's accelerated. I think it was 14 to 16 billion going to factory farms, meat and dairy farms. So, however, this is temporary in that a lot of dairy farms are actually just pouring out their milk into the ground before the COVIDs. And the reason that was happening is because people are not buying cow's milk the same. So if you are a business person and you want to succeed, then you are going to go with what the consumer wants. So the consumer is the most powerful one here. And we can reach consumers, whether it be consumers in your church, whether it be consumers that I speak with in the school system with Animal Hero Kids, whether it be people that read the articles, watch Facebook videos. The consumers are king and queen. So that's who we need to reach. What do you think?
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
I think we offer to collect all these articles and put it together into a book. And I think I'm tentatively saying that the title of the book would be Animal Agriculture is Immoral. No, let that be the theme. And because it's already been said by others. So we are just repeating that, and then we are just going to expand on that from each of our perspectives. And in the afternoon panel also, I'm going to invite everyone to contribute to this. So shall we set a date? So maybe by June 15th, if we can all have our contributions in, we can get something out by the end of July.
Absolutely. How long do you want it, Sailesh? How long do you want? How many words?
It's use your own discretion. I mean, as long as you can, as long as you want. So from your perspective, from your religious perspective, So that's a great project.
You know, it's really interesting. It's really interesting that you know, when I consider the things I've read in World Peace Diet about like the definition of war in Sanskrit is the desire for more cattle. Like when I came to terms with that definition of war, it hit me between the ears. It was like the day I went vegan when I went from seeing stew meat to hacked up dead animal bodies. It was always dead, hacked up animal bodies, but I saw stew meat. Or it was always slices off of a pig's rear end, you know, in a frying pan, but I saw bacon. When I saw for the first time that all these wars that we fight are because of animals, because it's the desire for more animals on all the land, for power, for money, for prestige, politics, it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. The entire fabric, the entire DNA of our humanity, of our Homo sapienness, has been, it's almost like it's been hijacked by this hybrid definition. You know, like we really think we're fighting over other things. It's like on the outside, it looks like we're fighting over all these other things, you know, religions, this and that, you know, but what we're really fighting over is land to have more animals, to farm more animals. That's really the crux of the matter. And that truth began to infiltrate me in such a way to where, like right now, whenever I consider the idea of writing on animal agriculture is immoral, it's always been immoral. It has never not been immoral. But thousands and thousands of years ago, the definitions were in place that said about the harmonics or the vibration, the frequency that programmed humanity in such a way to be like talking heads and robots for animal agriculture. And it's time for us, as long as when we see this, when we can actually see this and farmers can see this, they can put down the machine. And it isn't going to be a fight. It'll just put down the machine and let's build a new system. Because I really do believe that the superpower for all humanity, our real superpower when we go vegan is our true compassion, our real ability to be super compassionate. I mean, when I have gone from a cattle ranch to now a vegan, not only a vegan, but an animal rights activist, where I won't even kill a spider or a roach or a bug that's in the garden. See, it's not because I'm trying to be perfect. It's because I respect that life. And so it is immoral. It is definitely immoral. And what we've done, because humanity has to, you know, for whatever reason, they got into this political struggle over power. And so now it's up to us to see the big picture, which is what COVID has done. COVID has given us the ability to realize that, you know, what we were talking about before COVID was the wall, the big wall that, you know, was going to be such a big deal, you know, it was so important. Well, COVID didn't see the wall. COVID doesn't see boundaries. COVID doesn't see species, doesn't see different line, black, white, yellow, red. COVID doesn't see that. And so what Mother Nature is teaching us, it's just how immoral it all is, because we are one. And it's time that we really see that. So thank you.
So to riff off what Renee was saying, this goes back way before COVID, before animal agriculture, which began about 10,000 years ago. There was no such thing as an epidemic. This is true. This is what anthropologists have discovered. Epidemics did not begin until we attempted to domesticate animals. And with the first diseases, just like the major diseases today, were zoonotic.
And evidently, war did not exist before animal agriculture either. Some of the recent anthropological stuff that I've read, they're saying that old anthropology studies were saying that there was war, but this one study that I was reading about said they looked at how they were defining war, and it was anything, any kind of violence at all. So he took out things like revenge murder of one person to another, and realized that those had been included as war under the definition of war, which is ridiculous. And as it turns out, basically war and animal agriculture started together about 10,000 years ago. So here we are, and we're right here at the precipice where we can show people what that has done, and that we do have the capacity to live in a different way. We don't have to live this way. And that's the exciting part. And we do have that compassion within us, that superpower that you're talking about, Renee. And that's what's going to bring us out of this and create a whole new way of living. And yeah, so it's very exciting. But yeah, it's the anthropological research is very interesting. And the fact that war and animal agriculture started together, it's like we opened a Pandora's box with confining animals. And from then on, it was, we just created hell on earth. So now we're going to create heaven on earth.
Can I chime in here and ask everyone who has ask their local church and their local school to stock a book for children about being kind to all animals. That's the Animal Hero Kids Voices for the Voiceless book. And it's full of vegan recipes in the middle, and many children heroes who are helping all species of animals. And often I have found that the adults that may be resistant to hearing the word vegan are not resistant to hearing stories of kids and teenagers advocating or rescuing other species of animals. That's all species of animals. So we really have a push on currently, animalherokids.org, to get the Animal Hero Kids Voices for the Voiceless book in every school or library or church, like Sunday school. Montessori is currently using it for their curriculum, and it's a win-win-win. It's bullying prevention, it's violence prevention, it's empowering to youth that they have the power to change the world and help other animals, because they're reading about the children that are actually doing that. So they see, oh, this 8-year-old can help this dog, cat, chicken, cow, and I'm an 8-year-old and I could do the same thing. And the people, you don't necessarily have to have money to help animals, and it's a really good section of the world that is embodied in the book, and it won the Skipping Stones Honor Award for the Multicultural Award for the Skipping Stones Youth Magazine. So it really is a far-reaching book. So if everybody would, even if you find a school that you would like to gift the book to, and let's say they can't afford it, or a library, then you could contact me, Susan Hargreaves, at animalherokids.org, and I will make sure that I put a book in the mail to them. And the free education programs, it's quite possible that one of you listening may like to go to your temple or your Sunday school and read some of the stories from the book. Maybe Renee would like to return to church at Sunday school and read some of the stories from the Animal Hero Kids book. Maybe the one about Gizmo, the Future Farmers of America, well, the 4-H Club rescued pig who is currently at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So if I could ask everyone watching and everyone on this panel to consider helping us get this book in every school library, church, and regular library. And we're also doing Animal Hero Kids Month. And that means that you in your area, let's say, for instance, your church, your community, your local city commission or county commission will proclaim it to be Animal Hero Kids Day in your area. And we will help you give that commission, city and county commission, a vegan lunch, plant-based lunch for free. So that's in October, Animal Hero Kidtober. So if anybody wants to join us, then your website and your link will be on the Animal Hero Kids Month page on our website. And we will include you in the news release that's going to be going out internationally, because we have partners all over the world: Egypt, Vancouver, Canada, England, Australia, Brazil. So if you want to join us, I think now is the perfect time for Animal Hero Kids Month, because it reaches people who are mainstream people who may be resistant to the whole vegan thing and have these preconceived ideas. But then when they read the stories or find out about kids in their own community who are helping animals, their heart opens. And then when their heart opens, we give them free vegan food. So if anybody wants to join us, go to animalherokids.org for that. Because now is the perfect time. I hope Rowdy Girl Sanctuary does an Animal Hero Kids Month. I hate to put you on the spot. And Dr. Rao's granddaughter is in the Animal Hero Kids book for all her wonderful advocacy. She's a great voice for other animals.
Thanks, Susan. I'm gonna add that to the Interfaith Vegan Coalition resources, so it'll be on there too, and how to get it, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Susan. It is. I think Kimaya enjoys working with you, working with the Animal Hero Kids. She loves watching the videos that you make.
And we opened up our recent video with Kimaya. Her joy at being an Animal Hero Kids and her pride was so evident just in that one statement: we are the Animal Hero Kids. Well, we have to open up this video with that. Yeah, she's wonderful. And if anybody knows an Animal Hero Kid that might want to join, just go to animalherokids.org too. And we are always looking for kids and teens to join all the others. And the child doesn't have to be vegan. A lot of times they're maybe not vegan at the beginning, where we are attracting the mainstream. They may just want to help dogs. Then they find out how other animals are being treated, and quite often they do become vegan. So go ahead.
I wanted to mention that Renee didn't hear your request. She had to step out to maybe see if her phone was found. So when she's back, we'll have to ask her again. And there's also Victoria joined us. She was accidentally in the wrong part of the Zoom call. So I don't know, Victoria, if you can hear us or join us with your camera. If
See,
possible.
okay. Now, hello. Hi, everybody. Sorry to be late. A gift COVID for me is that I'm finally, after 52 years of doing yoga, taking yoga teacher training on Zoom. So that's all day today. So I had to miss the first hour, but it's beautiful to see all your lovely faces.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, always a pleasure to see your smiling face, Victoria.
Thank you.
So, Victoria, would you like to say a few words about the current situation and how a prayer for compassion fits into it, and what are you doing about it?
Well, I'd love to. For those who don't know me, I was fortunate enough to be able to work with Thomas Jackson from the beginning on this beautiful film that I know we're all a part of in some way and so proud of. And for me, this current situation has put vegan living at the forefront. I mean, you can't look at the New York Times, the Guardian, USA Today without an article about why we need to be, at first they were saying eating less, eating no meat. I mean, it's really a time like I've never experienced. And I went vegetarian in 1969 and vegan in 1983. And this is a first for the world, looking at the way we live and wanting to know about it. And I think what's so special about a prayer for compassion in this context is that people who do identify as religious or spiritual are part of those people who are seeing these articles, who are aware of things like, for example, how the slaughterhouse workers are being treated, the total absurdity that people are being told that they have to risk their lives to provide meat because it's essential. And those of us who haven't had it in decades are like, wait, what kind of parallel universe am I living in here? And then people are being drawn in through their compassion for other humans to this. We're also seeing the underlying conditions that people who are hit hardest by COVID seem to be those who have heart disease or diabetes or morbid obesity or some of these other things that we know respond to a well-chosen plant-based diet. And then certainly there's the zoonotic cause of the COVID to begin with. So people hear about that. They want to be part of it, but they don't know what to do. It's a little bit scary and it's a little bit acultural. And this is something that I've been thinking about since taking the yoga teacher training, that even though I've been around yoga since I was 18 years old, I remember when I was 17, I was living in Kansas City and the Hare Krishnas came to town. I'd never heard of anything like this. I'd never seen people wearing orange robes with their heads shaved. It was all very new to me. And we were out in this park and we were all chanting Hare Krishna. And I was chanting Hare Krishna with my voice, but I was praying inside my good Catholic girl mind, please God, if I'm doing something really wicked, forgive me, because because I don't know if it's wicked or not. And so that's how I think a lot of people who are religious look at veganism. It's like, well, okay, I want to support the slaughterhouse workers. I want to be healthy. And maybe I'm even awakening to the fact, I wouldn't really want to kill an animal for a living. Maybe nobody should have to do that. But culturally and spiritually, they don't know where to put it. And a prayer for compassion says, whoever you are, whatever your spiritual path, these teachings are within your tradition. And that's so exciting. So I'm thrilled that we're on Amazon. I'm thrilled that people are being able to see Thomas's beautiful work at this most perfect time.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. In fact, we have been talking about writing a book with everyone contributing a short article for the book. And the title of the book would be Animal Agriculture is Immoral. Because it's something that has been said in the New York Times now, and in the National Review. It's been said, not by religious leaders, but by others. So we think it's time for the religious community to come forward and expound on that topic. So we invite you to also send us an article.
Thank you.
We'll compile it. So we are requesting everyone to send the article by June 15th, and we'll compile it into a book by the end of July.
And I just want to say thank you, Victoria. I couldn't get to my mute fast enough to thank you. But man, like, this film could definitely not be made without you and your support and your encouragement. And I can't thank you enough for taking the journey with me. And it's amazing because I think of the journey when it started. It was over 4 years ago that we first got together and talked about this. And I look at what's happened in our culture and in the world, like going back to India and just not even just in India, but traveling to other countries along the way and just seeing how when we started this film, veganism was still like, if you heard it on the TV, it was a little condescending in the voice. It was still this little bit of something, and their alternatives were not available like they are now. In the 4 years, it's amazing. So it's just, to me, it's a reminder, like, all of this is on the right timing. Like, we need them now. Like, I don't think before now, I don't think that they could, if everybody say, hey, I want to go vegan, I want to have an alternative burger or whatever, I think we would have been hard pressed to meet the need. But what I'm seeing during this time is like, as the meat processing is going down, all of these companies are soaring and they're able to step up their products and meat. So I think it's all coming together, and I'm just so glad we're all on this journey. And the other thing I wanted to say to Renee is that I so hear what you were saying about your church, and that when I was making this film, I talked to so many people that quit going to their church because they felt ridiculed for making a choice that, was inspired by their compassion and their religion. And now what I say is, like, I'm so proud of you to say you'll go back, or go, like, even if we don't become weekly members, I think it's important that we go back to those places and we normalize it. Because what Victoria was saying about it being like this alien thing to so many people, like, that's starting to not be the case, thank God, and it's all because of each one of you and each one of us that go out in public and just proudly order that burger, or go to our churches, bring that veggie dish and they try it. The food is such great activism. And so I think I'm so proud of all of us for the work we're doing. I see it. I mean, in the last 4 years, it's just cannonballing. I think it's going to be normalized. Like, what is it? Sailesh, you can probably talk about how exponential growth. You could give some examples of movement place where we're hitting it, like the mainstream, where all of us can give an example of yesterday where we listened to something or read something in the mainstream that talked about plant-based and talked about the animal agriculture, the negative aspects of it, like in the mainstream. So I'm very excited about these times, and thanks for joining us, Victoria. Thank you.
Yeah, the examples I use of exponential growth are, on the internet. In 95, there was an article in Newsweek saying the internet is going nowhere. Who's going to read things on this? Who's going to buy stuff off the internet? And 8 years later, I overheard someone say, I cannot live without the internet. So it was just 8 years between who needs this to I cannot live without it.
No, it's we've learned several new phrases in the past 2 or 3 months, like we never use the term wet markets. Social distancing was not part of our vocabulary. This just hit me as we were talking about this exact issue of exponential growth, which another term which has come to our vocabulary is R naught, which is the infection rate, right? So R naught above 1 means COVID-19 is growing. If it's below 1, means each person who has it is infecting on average less than 1 person. So this is true of veganism too. There's an R naught of veganism. We have to get that number way above 1. But if we do that, there's no stopping it.
I just like to share something that my organization is doing right now for this. I think a lot of you know that I run a school called Main Street Vegan Academy that trains and certifies vegan lifestyle coaches. And we have 470 of them in 28 countries. So we had a Zoom call. What can we do? What can we do? Well, we decided we want to give free services for a month or something like that, because more people are looking for alternatives. And the very next day, I saw a man on CNN named Joe Enrique Henry, who's with LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. And his national organization wanted to just kind of get their feet wet. And they said, to draw attention to the plight of the slaughterhouse workers, we're going to encourage people to do meatless Mondays during the month of May. Well, Joe Henry is head of the Iowa chapter, and he's there where they have a lot of slaughterhouses and where they know these people who are getting sick and some of whom have died. And he's like, no, that meatless Monday thing, that is not enough. We're going to call for meatless May. Now, all they were saying was meatless May, boycott corporate beef. Like if you could go straight to a slaughterhouse or straight to a farmer and avoid the slaughterhouse, that would be okay. Well, I called him anyway. And now he is surrounded by vegans. Jane Velez Mitchell is on board with this thing, and a bunch of other vegans. And it's so interesting to see this gentleman who's been a human rights activist his whole life, all of a sudden be opening up about animals and about food. It's utterly fascinating. So what we're doing at Main Street Vegan, and if you'd be willing to share this, I'd be just so grateful. We're doing a thing called Meatless May and More, which we intend to carry through June. And the LULAC people are going to change their thing from Meatless May to Meatless Nation. And I think it's going to be really big because they seem to have a way to get major publicity. But just what we're doing to help out is offering free personal coaching to anybody with a question about vegan, about plant-based, about eating less meat. There's no kind of, well, we'll only talk to you if you want to be vegan. It's like, if you just want to know how to cook beans, we will talk to you. So if people just go to mainstreetvegan.net and click on Meatless May, you'll see these free services. And we've heard from some vegans, like, I keep trying to talk to my mother and she won't listen to me, but she'll listen to somebody else with some letters after their name. And that's what we're offering. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Victoria. Anita Kreitz called me the other day, about 4 or 5 days ago, and told me all about this and was, soliciting our support. And then I talked to Jane, and she was telling me about this gentleman you're talking about in the Meatless May. And I think it's freaking incredible. We need to figure out how to all gather around. I mean, anything I can do. I told Anita, whatever you need, if you need me to get on a conference call with their union, I don't care what you need me to do. Just let me know, whatever that is, because this is one of those windows that I was talking about earlier, that innate superpower of compassion that we all possess deep down within us, that gentleman is now exhibiting that power. He is ready to tap into that superpower and do whatever he has to, to bring it forward. So thank you for reminding us all about that, Victoria. And so good to see you.
You too. And your work is so important and I think so special, because the one kind of elephant in the room, which might not be a vegan thing to say, but one very appreciated and well-treated elephant, is this idea that the LULAC people, they want to bring in the farmers. And that's going to be a little tough, with all of us vegans, because we know some farmers can do other things and other farmers, they're just not thinking in that way. So you're someone who can communicate with them. And it's just so cool how we all have our gifts and talents and the people that we can connect with best.
Well, on today around, I think it's at 3 o'clock, I speak on the Animal Liberation Conference format. And I'm going to be actually speaking about the Barretts and how farmers are becoming animal rights activists. Because see, when you can get a farmer to not only convert and change their way of living on the land, but when you can get that farmer to become an animal rights activist, when you can inspire them to defend the animals they used to slaughter, which is what happened to me, what happened to my husband, what happened to us. Wow, that compassion, that reserve, that reservoir of innate compassion bursts forth. And I'll tell you, the lives that change, the people that see, the eyes that open, the ears that unplug, the heart that just finally opens. It's so wild when a farmer does it. I mean, the reason why I can say that is because it accidentally happened to me. It was all by accident. I didn't know that me going crazy, and threatening my husband to go bring all the cows back home and buy them and bring them back home. I didn't know that was going to start all this with the Rancher Advocacy program, but quite frankly, my husband transitioning was my first farmer in rap, and nobody knew about it but me. And and so, even though my husband did it kicking and screaming, he did it, and our marriage survived it. And what I'm seeing happen here, and this is what's so cool about the talk I'm doing this afternoon for Animal Liberation Conference, is I'm actually going to just be focusing on that subject of animal farmers becoming animal rights activists, because Jennifer and Rodney Barrett are among one of the most amazing farmer families you will ever get to meet. And we are transitioning their former cattle ranch and chicken farm to a mushroom farm right now. Wow. Paul Berry just left there. He's here now at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary in Welder, but he just left the Barrett farm so that they can get their LLC in place. We are on a fast track to get mushrooms growing in those houses. And we're going to be talking all about it this afternoon.
Well, I have a question for you, Renee. It gets a little bit away from the religion, but what's the difference between someone who's been raising animals, switching, to somebody who's in this big kind of agribusiness thing of raising all these grains and soybeans to feed to animals? Because I think especially with so many of the slaughterhouses being in the Midwest, a lot of these farmers might not be raising animals, but they're part of that system. And I think a lot of them believe that their land isn't good for anything else. What would they do?
Yeah, and this is where, this is the way I look at the farmers that I'm talking about, like Jennifer and Rodney and Holly and Davey Shockerell and Giddings and Cindy and Richard Traylor and Huntsville and ourselves. We are that salt of the earth people that, we really want to do the right thing. And by our land with the animals, we really do want to do the right thing. But there's many levels. There's the factory farmers, there's the feedlots, and then there's the farmers like you're talking about that contribute to the business by growing the grains, and their land is just depleted. It's decertified. It's full of chemicals. It's full of toxins, and it's really, in my opinion, not even suitable for the grains that they grow for the animals. You know, this land, and this is something I talk about often in other forums, and Sailesh has heard me talk about it. Susan, I think, has heard me talk about it. Deborah, I know, has heard me talk about it. But we've got to get to a place where we are restoring the land back to the way it needs to be. We have got to do the kind of papers, white papers. Here's your another white paper, Sailesh. We got to do something to where we are teaching these farmers that what they're doing on the land is not contributing to the humanity or the animals, that it's hurting us. We've got to get the land restored in such a way where it takes care of the animals. It takes care of us. Because when animals start leaving the animal ag system, like what's recently happened, they had to be killed. Or like in the instance of Rodney and Jennifer Barrett, the 240 cows that we saved. These 240 cows cost a lot of money to feed. We need to be able to give them back to the land. But we can't give them back to that land. That land is useless, right? We got to be able to give them back to land that will feed them. So it's incumbent upon us to teach these farmers how to bring the land back to balance so that the animals can be returned to the land and the land can take care of the animals. Yeah, this is a very, very good question, Victoria. It's one that needs to, it needs to be solved, this problem. It's a very difficult question to answer right now because we are so out front right now just trying to help the farmers that we have transition. When you start talking about the farmers that are growing the food for these animals, that's a whole nother world of problems that we have to solve. And I'm up for it. I just need help. And I have thought about it, but I just need help. So thank you for bringing it to the forefront of this discussion.
Can that grain go, the grain that they're growing to feed the animals, and everybody knows it's 16 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. Can that grain go instead into the market in form of pastas, breads? I mean, is it possible that those particular farmers could be selling that grain for people to eat directly, which is much more efficient?
Oh, I'm sure that it could go to that, but they have contracts with all these end users, and it's the system.
Right.
It's the system that they're all in.
I just have to get Lovey, who's crying at the door. Sorry. Well, hold on.
Deborah, are there any questions?
I'm going to pass that to Suzanne and Rebecca. And invite people also, if you have questions, please put them into either the Facebook chat or the Q&A box on Zoom.
Yeah, there is a question in the chat box. Can someone address whether there's any value to small scale organic dairy farming?
I can go first, and so I'm just going to jump in. So I think we have a delay on some of the when people hear the question. I think there's a delay in some people's things. So small scale dairy farms, it's still immoral because a mother cow has her baby and her baby is taken away from her at birth. Whether that baby cow is male or female, the baby is always taken away so the human can sell the milk that was meant for that baby cow. So it is immoral. it is inhumane. It is always cruel to take a baby away from their mother. On one hand, I can't even believe I'm saying it is always cruel to take a baby away from the mother, in that I have to say that. But we do have to say that because the average person thinks that cows are just going around and they have milk. And if you don't milk them, it's uncomfortable for them. You're doing them a favor. And a lot of dairy farms actually even will say it's really, it's not safe for the baby to be with the mother. So they have to take them away.
Yeah, you know, thank you for that, Susan. It's so true. That is so true. And, you know, whenever I was transitioning to vegan, and I didn't ever know I was transitioning to vegan. I didn't know I was going vegan until the moment it happened, because it was immoral and unethical for me as a rancher's wife to even think such a thing. And see, this is the dilemma that ranchers' wives and their families are in, is to go against that demigod of cattle ranching. Is, you know, it's sacrilegious. And so when I started having issues with what we were doing, I was doing everything I could to be more moral. So I went to the whole humane, I bought the whole humane myth, hook, line, and sinker, pardon the expression. But I bought that myth and I started getting my milk from a local dairy because it made me feel better as human, buying my milk from a dairy up the road where they would deliver the milk to my door in glass jars. And the name of the cow was on the top. You know, it said Molly or Della or Rachel. And so I felt so justified in drinking that milk because I was drinking Rachel's milk. I was eating Della's butter. I mean, I got the butter, I got the cheese, I got the milk, you know, and as a farmer trying to do better, I really thought I was. See, this is the issue. It's sacrilegious for farmer families to go against that tradition. You don't do that easily. I almost went crazy doing it. And so when I started doing my research, see, what happened is I began to stumble in my research because I love to know things. I want to research, I want to know. I began to stumble on veganism by accident in studying humane meat, humane milk. And so as a result, I would accidentally land on stuff about veganism. I'll never forget the day I saw something by Gary Yourofsky, and I'm a cattle rancher, and I'm going, what? This guy is off the chain, you know? And I can remember thinking, oh my God, the gall of these vegans doing this to, you know, and you know, and here I am trying to be humane and thinking I'm all good and righteous. Yeah, and so what happened is I began to stumble on the dairy videos with the babies being taken away from their mothers and the mothers crying for their babies. And see, what happened to me is I remember the mothers crying for their babies on my farm, and I knew that was the truth. And I felt that so deeply. And you know, I was trying to convince myself that this was all just, you know, what do you call it? Just what they always say, the vegans are trying to exaggerate the story. And it's just, you know, propaganda, vegan propaganda. It's not real. This is just stuff they're making up. I mean, I really thought that. I mean, a lot of people do, y'all. A lot of people really think it's propaganda. But see, what I knew, because I was one, is that part was not propaganda, because I had felt it and couldn't talk about it.
No,
it was like
no.
I had a lump. Huh?
No, it's just, you said you mentioned dairy farmers would see it as sacrilegious to give it up, but dairy itself is sacrilegious. It says in the Bible, and I was looking for the exact citation, I couldn't find it off the top of my head. I want to say it's in the book of Exodus. it says explicitly, you cannot separate the baby, the calf, from the mother for 7 days, which admittedly, that's a pretty low bar. But in the dairy industry, they never meet that standard because the calf is always taken away within 1 day, even in a small farm. So it's a mystery to me as a Jew, how any dairy product can be considered kosher, because it directly contradicts an explicit verse in the Bible. The second thing is this, and this is the great scholar Maimonides, who lived in the 13th century, who's one of the top Torah scholars of all time, and is still studied today, especially in the Orthodox world. Maimonides said, this is in the 13th century, a mother cow's love for her calf is no different than a human mother's love for her baby. It comes from the same place. They knew this 900 years ago.
Of course. Of course. And that's exactly to your point, is why I knew this wasn't propaganda, is because as a rancher's wife, I had felt those mothers crying. I had watched the babies' eyes explode in tears when they left our farm. I just couldn't talk about it because I was supposed to be strong and not, I couldn't, you have to compartmentalize all this stuff when you're in the business, and it's just unspoken. And so this all started becoming very real to me. And that's how I ended up, finally becoming vegan, is because of all the research I was doing, and eventually landed on Melanie Joy's dissertation on carnism. And then, one day on October 31st, I went vegan when I saw dead animal bodies in a bowl instead of stew meat. It was a transformation for me. It happened like this. And when I went vegan, I didn't even know, like I said, I was going vegan. I just knew that was it. I could no longer eat the pieces of bodies. I couldn't drink the excretions from another species. It was just like, for me, it was just like a no-brainer. I was done. It was over. Tommy, get that crap out of the house. You're not farming animals anymore. It's over. You're over. It's done. And that's what happened, but it was a process. And see, so for me, it's like, is the humane meat idea a part of the story for some people? I believe it is. It was for me. It got me here because in studying about the humane meat situation and milk, I stumbled on veganism, which I would have never looked for. I would have never went searching for slaughterhouse videos on baby cows being taken away from their mothers, but I was searching for, little dairy farms, and all that to get milk. So it's a very relevant conversation.
Well, I see, Jeffrey, there's a question for you about the Maimonides quote, but when you were telling that, I was thinking about the scene in A Prayer for Compassion when the Imam was telling a story that the Prophet Muhammad was upset when a man was playing roughly with a baby chick and said that you're not supposed to treat the child of another like that. And the word that he used for child wasn't the word baby chick, it was the word for human child. And as somebody, my degree is in comparative religions, and I love to see these connections, the go around, the come around, and the connections. I think in terms of the small dairy farms, it's simply a matter of size and demand. When I was taking an Ayurveda course a few years ago, one of the people there was really trying to draw me into an argument about how there could be humane dairy. And she told me how the Hare Krishna people, again, had raised cattle and they didn't separate the mothers and the babies, and they didn't kill either gender, and when the cow was no longer able to provide milk, she was kept, and it was all wonderful. And, I don't like to argue with people who have made up their minds. So I just said, I'm vegan. That's my, where I am, and God bless us both. So the next morning I opened their refrigerator expecting to find this Hare Krishna milk, but instead there was Trader Joe's milk and Chobani yogurt, which was enough to tell me that maybe they could do this humane thing for the, I don't know, 100 people or however many people were living on the Hare Krishna farm. But when it comes to the community as a whole, even people like this woman who really wanted to have humane milk, you just can't do it. It's just not physically possible. And I think that, for as humanistic and as intellectual as we claim to be these days, we've got to face facts. You cannot, in a realistic way, provide cruelty-free or karma-free milk for the human population, period, end of story. And Jeffrey, you got a question about Maimonides.
What's the question?
Oh, we can read it out. It says, was the quote regarding a metaphor for love or an explicit endorsement for us vegans?
Can you repeat the question? Okay, I see it.
The quote about Maimonides was regarding.
No, it was, no, it wasn't a metaphor. Maimonides was a physician. He was a doctor, which is why there's many hospitals today named after Maimonides. He was a famous physician. So he was writing, he was speaking about this from a scientific standpoint. It's actually scientifically true. It comes from the same place in the cow's brain as it does in a human mother's brain, which is the limbic system. So it was, by no means was it a metaphor. He was talking explicitly about the natural instinct of both human mothers and animal mothers to love their young, without which none of us would be here, right? Because our mothers would have taken us to the curb the first time we woke them up crying.
I think it's valuable for everyone to remember that we didn't realize it at one point, how animals were treated on farms, and some of it was perhaps gradual, and some of it may have been like a lightning bolt. And when we're talking to people, I'm not saying to like pussyfoot around and say, oh, just eat less meat. I'm saying we just have to be mindful that the average person does not want to be cruel to animals. The average person walking around would not want to think that they are being cruel to animals. And once they find out, once it's presented to them in a way that they can comprehend easily, then they make the choice of not being cruel to animals. Like so many people, you will hear them in Italian restaurants, they'll say, oh, no, I don't eat veal. I don't order the veal. That's very cruel what they do with the veal. Not realizing that most dairy farms are also veal farms, because that's all the male calves that have been stolen from the mother babies. So I think it behooves us to keep in mind when we're communicating with people that it's a process, and not to put their backs up. It's a balance, let's say. And I'm not saying to soft code it, but in the education I do in schools for Animal Hero kids, I don't necessarily lead with vegan. What I lead with is being kind to all animals, and that includes cows and chickens. The most abused group of animals in the world are farmed animals, and then telling them why they are the most abused group and the most ignored group when it comes to being treated kindly. And the chicken is the one bird in the world, or the one animal in the world, that is absolutely the most abused animal in terms of numbers of animals killed, in terms of the male chicks who are gassed and suffocated when they're hatched. And a lot of times the way I get that point across is like a little poem, you know, to especially to teens like middle school, to get them to do a rap like, "A chicken is a bird like any other. In Africa, they used to sleep in trees for cover. Now they're overcrowded and sentenced to the dark. The only light they see is when the slaughterhouse truck parks. We're all animals." So I think underlining the "we're all animals" is also really important, because many people in all communities, whether it be the religious community, the business community, any community that has humans in it, they have separated themselves from the other animals. I did a program at a breakfast meeting of businessmen for the Rotary Club one morning, and I asked them what kind of animals we are, because the programs are very interactive, and there was like crickets, dead silence. What kind of animal are we? Nothing. They never had an answer, because they didn't think they were animals. They thought that they were so much more superior than animals. And so I think at the absolute root of cruelty is the fact that people are separating themselves from being an animal. And we are all animals.
Susan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I love the work that you're doing. And, you know, I think most of us know that with the brainwashing to eat meat and dairy starts with children. And that's something that the industry did. I'm going to mute you until I get my question out, just because there's feedback. Thank you. So I think that is wonderful. And I you know, when we know that, to me, you know, once you know something, you can't unknow it, right? So, you know, when you realize that you've been sold a bill of goods and it's wrong, you've been told that after you've been fed the milk from your mother and weaned from that milk, now you have to go rob milk from a cow. Like, you know, what kind of sense does that make, that you would even need milk at all, or milk substitute for that matter, in your life, because you are weaned, right? You have reached a certain age, you don't need milk anymore. And so I think that that's beautiful, the work you're doing with the children. And then when they go home to their parents, because their parents make the decision, is there a part of your message that's reaching the parents to help, so these children aren't in that conflict with, what do I do with this now?
Yes, actually, we have the Animal Hero Kids Pledge Card. And the Animal Hero Kids Pledge Card is for elementary age children. And that's where it says, and they put their name, will never harm another animal. I promise to be kind. I promise to be a part of the solution for homeless animals and spay and neuter. So the programs are about all species of animals. I promise to not go to circuses where companion animals are. And they also have with them, as well as that Animal Hero Kids Pledge Card that they've written their name on, and that has the design that's behind me on it. See that big on the front? They then also have a free product coupon for tofurkey or some kind of vegan product. Tofuti has given me free product coupons. Any just in case there's anyone watching that has a company that sells products that is vegan, if you want me to give out those vegan product coupons, then I can do that. And often, if I have the opportunity, the kids will have an activity where they're making vegan food as part of the program. And then at the end of it, we all sit down and enjoy it. So for instance, it might be a vegan hero submarine sandwich. And I'll just bring everything from the grocery store, the regular neighborhood grocery store, not fancy, you know, health food stores, And they will then build their own sandwich. And then of course they'll go home and tell their parents about it. So, so they, not only do they have the opportunity to have a free product, they go home equipped with the knowledge that this all came from their local grocery store. And then they have that Animal Hero Kids pledge card reminders that includes all animals and then has our website on it. So, and then also the Animal Hero Kids book, where I read the stories from the Animal Hero Kids book, goes into their library so the kids can take this book out and bring it home. So if they love the stories, which often they clap, whether it be a chicken, a cow, a dog, or a dolphin who is saved, then they'll take that book home and show it to their parents as well. But now when you get to middle school students, it's different. There's no Animal Hero Kids pledge card. And it's actually when the experts say, child development experts say, that when you're 12 years old, that's when you start to look around at the world and say, is this true? Is this true? Is this accurate? And you start thinking more for yourselves. I happen to think it's earlier in a lot of children. And but when I speak with middle school students, they don't have a pledge card because it's too babyish, obviously. But what I say to them is, hey, don't just take my word for it. Investigate yourself. Research yourself. Just Google animal cruelty and cows. Google animal, and then teenagers, they don't like to be told what to do. And if they're thinking, oh, well, the world is telling me that I should do this, and I'm going to find out the truth, then bingo, you know, you've got a changed, empowered group there of consumers, really. And I really love, a lot of people don't realize that I speak to college age students as well and high school. And I really love speaking to that group age also, because of course they don't have to ask permission of their parents. They can just make a change right then and there. And as anyone who knows of Genesis, one of our earlier Animal Hero Kids Award recipients, well, she turned her family vegan at 5 years old. At 5 years old, she just simply asked the question, hey mom, what is this on my plate? And where did it come from? And her mom, Janelle, was really wise enough and open enough to answer truthfully and honestly. I also had the opportunity to give tours at places for kids where they meet chickens who are being rescued. And one time it was a Girl Scout group, because I had a Girl Scout patch at the time. And one of the younger Girl Scouts mothers was there, and I was showing the chicken was doing one of those like dust baths and showers, you know, which they love to do. And the kids loved it. And then one of the kids said to the mother, but is this the same chicken that we eat, Mom? Is this the same chicken? And the mother said, oh, no, it's a different type of chicken, So yes, it's still a battle, but children naturally gravitate towards being vegan. And there's a saying that Dr. Rao has about you're already vegan, you already have a vegan heart if you don't want an animal to be harmed. And of course he knows the quote way better than I do. So one day I still hope to have an education center that has like a little mini sanctuary on it that school children can come to and meet the animals who are rescued. But it has to be a mini sanctuary in a large school district. Because currently what's happening in schools is children are going on trips to dairy farms. They are going on trips to farms to have it normalized. And they see the birthing barn where they take the baby away from the mother, and they're told that it's better for the baby that the baby is taken away from the mother. And this is what they are training the kids with. There's even artificial insemination that they can do on statues. There's even mobile classrooms, they call them, that go to fairs and festivals, a mobile dairy classroom where they have a mother cow and in the mobile classroom that goes to a festival, and then the kids get to have dairy and so on. Currently, we, the animal rights movement, and do not have anywhere for children to visit in a large school district in this entire country where the children get to come and see rescued animals and learn about how they can be an animal hero. It doesn't exist. What they do have is 4-H clubs, which is where they will take an animal from birth, raise and love the animal, care for the animal, and then put the animal up for slaughter at the end of their project. Future Farmers of America, here in Florida where I live, the classrooms are in all of the schools where they do the same thing. In the book, there's like numerous stories where the children rescue their own animal. So I think that the animal rights movement is a little bit behind in that, well, I'm not going to be diplomatic here. We are a lot behind the factory farming industry and animal-based agriculture in our what we're offering children to come and experience. In the schools presently, they will be using, do you like animals? Do you like, who here likes animals? Come on, let's go on the field trip. And we're gonna see cows and pigs. And if I was 9 years old, if you would have said that to me, I would have went, oh, fabulous. I get to see a real cow. And then I go to the farm and see the cow. And I go to Fairlife Farm and I see that, oh, you do, for the cow's good, you do have to take the baby away. And Fairlife Farm is where Animal Recovery Mission did this undercover investigation that was extremely cruel, as it always is extremely cruel. And it was a major abuse going on at the same exact farm that the school buses are coming into. On one side, the birthing barn, and on the other side where all the baby cows are taken away. So I've been doing this for 40 years and I still don't have that education center. We still don't have, what we do have is we have tools and resources that we can use. And that's why I came up with Animal Hero Kids Month. I may not have the funds or the resources to have an education center here locally for kids to visit. Hero Kids book, and we're currently making an Animal Hero documentary that will be given to schools. We did make one before, and it was 430 schools that were given this free documentary, and it's always free resources. So if anyone watching wants something for their school, whether it be a video or a book, or if they want to go locally and just tell the stories from the book, then we will help you do that. We have the resources to give to you to go in there and be accepted into the mainstream schools and libraries.
Thank you, Susan. I have a couple of questions from Facebook, if that's okay.
Yes.
All right. One of them is for Thomas Wade Jackson, and it is from Jessica, and she wants to know, did you get all the footage you needed for your next film before the COVID isolation? And then you might want to tell us what your next film is.
Okay. First of all, there's still a little more to get, but this is the perfect opportunity to start reviewing what I have and start editing. Yeah, and the whole COVID will definitely be a part of it. The quarantine and all of these things. It's given me a chance. Before this, I've been so busy with the film that I haven't had a chance to get any cute footage with Melody. So now at least we got footage of that for the film. But I just really want to address a question too. and I'll tell you about the next film, but there's a question in this box that's about Acts 10 and about Peter, a dream, and about somebody using it at their church to justify eating meat. Well, I just want to make a blanket statement. You know, making the film, I talked to a lot of spiritual and religious people from a lot of different traditions. And I'm going to be honest with you. Every tradition that I explored is in alignment with a vegan diet. There is no way that a person in that religion can come to you and say, you can't be a vegan. It's in alignment. And in many religions, it's the ideal. You know, so before you answer a question about, and the other thing I'll tell you too is maybe not all, most of the religions do have, especially Christian and Jewish and Muslim religions, they all have verses that will justify taking acts against an animal or against another person or to have slaves. You know, there's a lot of justification within the Bible for these things. But if you're a Christian, and this person that's debating this person that's saying, oh, it says that you can eat meat in the Bible. If you're a Christian, I just want you to look at something. If Jesus was alive right now, and you took him to that slaughterhouse or that dairy where they're taking the baby away, or what's going on with the planet and the destruction of the planet, I want to know how you think Jesus would feel about this. You know, when it comes down to it, Jesus was very clear. Letters of the law that are within spiritual texts, although they may give us great guidance and they may teach us and lead us to great places within ourselves, they can still be used for things that are not in alignment with what Jesus was teaching. So what you have to do is take what Jesus talked about, the spirit of the law. You have to meditate. You have to take in these things, these verses, and meditate on them and really ask yourself, bring Jesus to the equation, bring him into your heart and ask yourself, if Jesus was alive now and there were all these alternatives, all these ways you can be healthy, and it's proven over and over. If you don't believe it, watch Game Changers. You can thrive on a vegan diet. If you don't believe it, ask me, ask all the people I interviewed. You know, I'm just telling you that I know it in my soul because I feel it, and I met all these people that had all these things. So, and the bottom line is no matter what the Bible says, or the Quran says, or the Torah says, and the bottom line is the spirit of that law and what we feel. Is it right to exploit and take another animal that is sentient, that is feeling, when it's unnecessary? You know, part of the new film, I'm going to be talking, it's called Compassion in Action, bringing the elixir home. It's putting into action what we learned making the film. But it also could be titled, How I Became a Vegangelist, you know? And somebody mentioned Sailesh's quote. Susan, you mentioned Sailesh's quote. Well, that's one of the reasons I became a vegangelist. He does it and I do it now. I never get in front of a group of people without saying, would anybody here unnecessarily hurt an innocent animal? And I don't know if it's changed for you, Sailesh, but I haven't had anybody raise their hand yet. And I didn't get to show it in the film because I got sick in Morocco and I didn't have a camera the first time I saw Sailesh do the punchline. But the punchline to that is, congratulations, you're a vegan. Because that's all a vegan is somebody who doesn't unnecessarily want to hurt an innocent animal. So I've come to believe that everybody I talk to is a vegan. And whether or not they are living it or not, they're vegan at heart. And the other thing he says in the movie is like, when what we say and what we do are out of alignment, we suffer. He said that, you know, in 2016, and I thought it was found, and I kept with it, but I didn't understand it. Now I get it. Because each of you out there have met people on this journey who has healed their lives by taking the violence out of their diet. We've seen that happen, and I've seen it happen. And then when I watch people in my own family suffering on my cousins having heart attacks and having surgeries and on medications and all these things that I know are unnecessary. You know, I know that there's suffering involved in going against our true compassionate nature, which is vegan. So when I speak to somebody now, I know their true compassionate nature is vegan. If they're not living it, they're suffering some way. So instead of coming at them with judgment about how can you do this to the animals and to the planet? How can you do this? I come at I cut out for a minute, but I've come back to really look for the person's suffering. and approach them, because what I've noticed, and also in the new film, I interview people like Dr. Joy, interview Claire Mann, the vegan psychologist, and it's all about trying to find ways to be more effective in our communication, because there's so many passionate activists out there doing so much work, and sometimes it's falling on deaf ears, because when somebody feels guilt, shame, or fear, the blood rushes to the back of their head. This is from Claire Mann, an interview I did with head, and suddenly they want to fight or flight. This is why suddenly people, and the other thing too is it rushes conversation. It naturally wants to go to this defensive mode. It's why you can be talking to somebody and suddenly want to get away or suddenly want to punch them. You know, this is because they were triggered and it triggered you, or vice versa. So a culture of shame where we're made to feel less than, so we feel unworthy and we want to buy these products and all these things. Like, everybody's got triggers now. So it's very important that when we see the blood rushing to the back of their head, that we somehow pull them back to us.
I'd like to share a Bible verse with you guys, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just real quick. It's Ecclesiastes 3:18.
That's my cue to pass it on. But you know, that if you have any other questions, I can ask later. I keep cutting off. I think it's my cue to pass it.
I'm sorry. Did I interrupt?
Go ahead, Renee.
I got cut off. I lost everybody, and I'm coming back just to say that I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Thomas. Oh my God, you are such an inspiration to me. I just hear you, and you're like the heartbeat of one of my blood arteries or something. I mean, I feel you so deeply. So thank you for what you're contributing to the world right now through this film and through the wonderful direction of what you're doing here. But this verse, it's in Ecclesiastes. It's chapter 3, verse 18 through 21. And y'all, you know, I was raised Christian. I'm reformed. I'm reformed. You know, I am now more of the Essene Christian, the true essence of what it is to be Christian. I guess if you could say I'm still Christian. But this verse is this: I said in my heart with regard to the children of man, that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast, for all is vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? You see, we all are from the same source. We are misguided, and our true nature is vegan. Our true nature is this superpower of compassion. And so I am with Susan in that if we don't educate in the schools, we are doing a real disservice to our movement. That's part of what Families Choosing Compassion with Rowdy Girl is doing, is we educate families when they want to surrender their FFA animal to Rowdy Girl or to another sanctuary. We do it all the time. We get to educate families and wake them up to the horrors of animal agriculture education. And we really want to take Families Choosing Compassion into schools and offer kids another outlet so that they can also be in programs in school, but instead of seeing the animal go to slaughter, they get to see the animal go to a sanctuary or to a willing participant's home where they can relate with that animal their whole life. I get to see that happen here with our animals here when Elena comes for a visit to see Gizmo, or when Emily comes to see DeMarcus. These are moments that I will never, ever be able to replicate anywhere. To see families, not just the children, but the families come here and those lives changed. Thank you.
And with that, That's a great segue. Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. It's been a wonderful session. We will have the recording for this on our website and on Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you all in the afternoon. If you can, join us. So it's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. So we'll have another session like this. So thank you again for your contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for, thank you to Thomas for creating the film. Thank you to Victoria and Dr. Rao for helping to promote the film. And thank you to all my co-panelists for all of the work that you're doing individually in your communities. So thank you so much. And I'll be sending you my article. Don't you worry. Thank you.